it out.
I wasn't here last time. I haven't. Last time there was a week 13, so I haven't seen that done before. I have to check that out next time.
There's just so much material in the show notes. It's hard to figure out what to say and what not to say without just reading it. So, who else is coming? I think Greg is.
Anthony can't make it.
Okay, stream's up.
Well, if it ends up just being us three when we get there, we can just, I guess, wing it, kind of pass off to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we'll do, is wing it.
Just take each topic and keep taking turns.
So we're not sure if Greg's coming in or not, or
I think he is, based on what he said earlier, but he didn't. Let me hit him up. He saw it. The crowd is White Link is gone. I'm glad I saved the screenshot.
okay.
I kind of knew that was going to happen when I saw the name of that thread. I was like, yeah. This thread will last.
Yeah, it was going like probably pretty fast after you posted it, because I was on it Sunday, I think.
It was gone then?
I think so. It's either Sunday or Monday. I was on it for sure.
Okay, I'm going to hit up Evan.
Yeah, it's just three, it looks like.
Whenever you're ready. I gotta close my door. Oh. See, when we get down to 3 people, that's when we need more people on the team, so we don't run out of people for the show.
I don't know though. Sometimes just 3 or 4, or just 2 or 3 flows pretty good. Flows really fast.
Yeah. So I guess we're waiting for Evan. Be thinking title ideas.
I'm waiting until they come to me at the end. You know, something will present itself.
I've already put up a couple. And I didn't watch the Coke race, so I kind of did parts of it, like the end of it, and then I kind of skipped through it later.
Hey, who did the notes?
I stole the notes off Twitter.
Oh boy.
But I'm going to give full credit for it. I always do. The link right above it is Justin Malillo, and he's the one who twitters all the
Yeah.
play-by-play.
Yeah, I haven't been home, man. I've been getting home at, I guess, 7 my time.
Okay, it looks like Evan's not seeing my message. Usually I ping him and he jumps right in. Huh. So let's start thinking plan B here. So I don't want to be in the middle of the release notes while he shows up and then he has to wait while we go through that.
Yeah, that
Well,
could
here's
take a little
here's
while.
what we can do. I can rearrange it. I'll just put them at the beginning, whatever we do. So just do a long pause. You know what I'm saying? And then pretend.
Oh, we'll cut him
and
in,
then
you mean?
Yeah, we'll cut him in.
No, what I mean is, let's just skip the release notes and go straight to Crowd is White.
Oh, that works too.
Yeah, to start going down these
then we'll
short
just
ones.
Then we can just go in
And
order
then
that
when
way.
he shows up, we'll do it. And if he doesn't show, we'll back up to the release notes. Evan did tweet earlier that he had to go to the doctor for something, so maybe something's going on. So I guess let's hit record, everybody.
By the way, how's my volume? I've got my mic turned down, but a lot closer to me now.
Okay.
Last time the background noise was really bad.
Welcome to the iRacers Lounge. I am your host, Mike Ellis. iRacers Lounge is a podcast for the iRacer, where we talk all things iRacing in a casual setting. Joining me are the usual characters, Brian McCubbin.
Hey guys, how's it going on? Anything new this week?
Yeah, David Hall.
Hello, hello.
Back to teaching, and that's it. And hopefully Evan Pasoko will be joining us shortly, but we'll jump right into topics in the meantime. David, when I saw this thread title, I thought, uh-oh, here we go again. The title of the thread was Crowd is White.
Yeah, it's obviously some kind of graphics bug. You mentioned that it's no longer available on the forums. They probably dealt with it. When you see something like this, it's good to post it, but it's also good to put in a support ticket. They usually respond to it pretty quickly.
So it wasn't a racial forum post. It was the crowd is literally white. And when there's a picture that I captured out of the forum post before it was deleted, showing just that. The grandstands, all the people are in the grandstands, and you can kind of see the shade of color of their clothes, but everything is like a washed out white. Very interesting bug, and I assume it's on the palette to get fixed.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that before. I can't tell what track it is. It's definitely a road course, but I can't tell what it is from that picture.
I haven't figured that out yet either. And with that, there's Evan Pasoko. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was a bit of an interesting race this week at Darlington, but happy to be on as always.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. But before the race, we got big news about the playoffs, formats, dates. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so basically, with the COVID stuff kind of changing a lot of scheduling, and I think the biggest issue was with NBC still unable to have a lot of their staff on site is we're going to keep doing the broadcasts in-house for the rest of the year, which is good for those who are kind of used to the normal schedule, because that means we stay on Tuesdays. And you can be watching these races for the rest of the year on the iRacing Sports Network. So that's all of iRacing social channels, as well as at enascar.com. But they did mention, I believe, that in some sort of way that there's going to be highlights of our races covered by NBC on NASCAR America. And then a week or so after our finale at Homestead, there's going to be like an abbreviated 1-hour broadcast of it on NBCSN. And the cool thing is, I think in 2 weeks at Vegas, that we're going to have Steve Letarte and Parker Kligerman actually in the booth with me for the final 6 weeks. So obviously we were looking forward to being on NBCSN. Unfortunately, it can't happen because of a lot of the changes that have happened over the course of what's been a kind of a crazy year, but making the best of it.
Yeah, my guys were telling me it has to do with something called hockey, which I really don't know much about.
Well, I'm a big hockey fan, so I'm all over that. But yeah, I think it was just a combination of with the Corona stuff going on that NBC wasn't able to get all of their people into the studio in Stamford like they would have wanted to give us a similar presentation of what we saw last year, and the fact that all these companies are going through so many layoffs that just not going to happen this year. So fingers crossed for 2021 we'll be back.
Yeah, initially I was pretty bummed about this because I was hoping to watch it on TV, but at the end of the day, I mean, iRacing was blessed by NASCAR, NBC, Fox earlier this year with the amount of incredible exposure. This was completely over the top, and this is just a wrinkle in the sand.
Yeah, it was a huge bit of exposure with the Pro Invitational Series. And NBC is cool that they're still giving us Steve and Parker to be on the broadcast. So it'll basically be what the NBC broadcasts would have been, just online. For us, nothing changes. Nothing was really going to change anyways. And like I said, I'm sure iRacing is going to be looking to extend this partnership with NBC. And they did a really good job of, even though we can't do it live like we wanted to, showing highlights and giving us that 1-hour championship special on November the 8th, taking a look back on, I think, is when that's going to air. So I think everybody did as good of a job as you can think of, just to kind of be flexible and make something happen. And, if this year has been any indication, aside from the trials and tribulations and the ups and downs, that this series is going to be around for a long time. So don't be afraid that last year I think was the only time it was going to be on TV, because I think we got a lot to come down the road.
Oh yeah. So also, because it's Darlington and it was a throwback kind of scheme there, a lot of the drivers put out their throwback paints, and I was trying to, oh my God, let me gather these together so we can look at them. What a daunting task. But actually, Justin Melillo over at theracingexperts.com, he actually got a screenshot of almost all of them on one website. So thank you to Justin for putting that together, and also for tweeting out play-by-play of the broadcast, which helps me out a lot.
Justin's great. He's such a good resource, and I've talked before on the podcast about how he was in Charlotte with us earlier this year for Media Day, and helped us keep some sanity as well, try to keep track of all the throwbacks. I think that we featured 28 of them on the broadcast. There was probably a little bit more than that, but we could only talk about the ones in which the drivers gave us reference photos that we were legally allowed to use on the broadcast. I'm curious what everybody's favorite throwback was of the group, because I think, in my opinion, I thought that Bobby Zelensky's Harvick throwback was the coolest looking one, but I was curious if you guys had some favorites.
Well, the Bobby Labonte Interstate Battery I thought was pretty classic. But also the Tide Ride, I got to say, because I used to run the Tide colors.
Yeah, I was going to say I really like that that Ray and Bobby Linsky did the throwback to the NASCAR Racing 2003 cover, because that game's just, I still have that box in pristine condition and the game and everything.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome, because not only did they, not only is it a throwback to two iconic paints, but obviously there's no iRacing without NR 2003. So I thought that was super clever to do great throwbacks, two of the best looking ones in the field. But then also I think that tie-in with the history of sim racing made it cool. So I think those two definitely nailed it. It was funny seeing the dueling, if you would, Bobby Allison Coke throwbacks that had a bit of a rough night with Santi and Mullis as well. So I love the throwback night. I love when we get the different paint schemes, and I think it's so cool that we've embraced it on the sim side. I think the one, and I mentioned this on the broadcast, the one that kind of threw me for a loop was Jake Nichols running the Brad Keselowski throwback, just because it was obviously that's a Keselowski Dodge paint scheme that was on a 24 car that was on a Ford. I just thought it was funny, all the different crossovers. It was a little bit weird to see, but I thought that was fun too.
Yeah, it was pretty neat, and it gave us something to look at going up, leading up to the race, and some engagement on social media. Let's get into the race. It was almost very early trouble. Brian Schoenberg, Justin Bolton made contact entering turn 1, lap 1. Everyone gathered it up. We continued onward. Leaders were Conti, Leahy, Ottinger, Alfala, Kerwin, Zielinski, Keister, Vincent, Davies, Bryant. Conti was fast. He had the pole and fastest in practice.
Yeah, and he was actually pulling away, which we would kind of learn as the run or as the race went on, and we went through a couple of different runs that was not going to be, something that continued to happen, because he had gotten out to a little bit more than a second, and that ended up being kind of the biggest lead that we would see all night long. But at that point, I think it was clear that track position was going to be key. Maybe not how clear, because that was kind of the name of the game all night.
Absolutely. So first caution, lap 30, 3-car incident brings out that caution. It was John Gorlinski checked up off the corner, and then Graham Bolin ended up making contact. Eventually, 97 took a lazy spin and got Zach Novak. Man, I can't believe Zach's luck.
It's been rotten. And just when he has, he'll have a good week, and he'll pick up a little bit, of course, because his focus now is just on the relegation battle. And he'll have a bad week, and then you'll be like, here we go again. They'll have a good week. It's been up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's, interesting enough that, coming into this race, at least, he was +3, got to above the cut line, and then he has a down week. But, that's just been the way his season's gone. And I guess, even Ray can attest to this. The guys that have been around forever, the vets, know that not every year could be a great year, and it's been rotten for him, to be honest.
Well, it turned out that the move of the race was next right on pit road during that first round of pit stops. Keegan Leahy was able to take the lead over Michael Conti on the exit of pit road.
And it wasn't even like, not like Conti overshot the stall at all. And they said this when we were in the post-race interviews that, Conti's like, I didn't feel like I did anything wrong. But it was just a case of, a lot of tracks, that number one pit stall is a big benefit, because that scoring line is, 5-10 feet away, and it was like 30 or 40 down. So it didn't give him as much of an advantage. Didn't give him a disadvantage at all. But it was really, we only saw 2-3 instances of actually, first two pit stops, I think we saw Conti lose a spot each time, went first to second, and then later he would go second to third. We're thinking, okay, it's going to be a theme all night. That was kind of it. Nobody else really top 5 lost or gained anything notable. It was just, for whatever reason, Conti was a little bit slow at the start, and that kind of what sank him.
Yeah, and we all know that when you're on pit road, the pit stops can vary by a second or two, kind of randomly. And that's probably all it was, really, because like you said, Mike had a good stop. Keegan just had a better stop. And these guys are so evenly matched that's all it takes.
Yeah, and that's we kind of know that the margin between teams is so small. And I think that, it's a little bit, in some cases it's grown. Only specific cases, as drivers have gotten more accustomed to this setup. But, through the field, we're averaging maybe 3 to 4 tenths of a second maximum between the fastest cars, the slowest cars, in qualifying. But just how hard this track is with this package to pass, and the fact that the faster car can be a couple hundredths better each lap, but you need to be like a tenth or two faster a lap to get enough of a run on anybody at this racetrack to actually make a move. That those restarts, were critical. And once you got 2-3 laps in, minus a mistake or contact, you were pretty much stuck. We saw cases where drivers got into the fence or they really burned up their equipment and they would, lose 4 or 5 spots. And there were drivers that went through the field. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were some impressive drives by guys like Malik Ray and whatnot. For the most part, though, the track position was more critical this week than I say it would be on average.
Oh yeah, because it's so hard to pass. If Keegan doesn't make a mistake, there's no getting around him. So lap 46, it was heavy damage for a few of the heavy hitters. Bobby Zalenski, Casey Kerwin caught the wall. Reynolds, Bryant, Busa though got the worst of it, and he had to retire.
And that's somebody else who has not had a lot of luck go his way, which is funny because he's a top 15 car in the points. I think that, or he was at least going into that race. I didn't take a look to see what he dropped or not, but Busta seems like to be one of those guys where he's deserved a lot more. There's only so many pole sitters in this series, and I think that's a pretty good indication of speed in most cases. And I think that based on that, he could probably be like a top 10 or 10th-ish car, like kind of a borderline driver to challenge for a playoff spot. But the problem is he is in the top 1/3 for incidents per race, which kind of goes to, I mean, it's half of what John Gorlinski's getting a race. You want to talk about bad luck? It has not been fun for John this year. But Boost is somebody else who, it's funny that you get in one incident and it feels like you're in a dozen.
Yep, exactly. Lap 52, not long after, it was the 2 Coke cars with the same kind of paint job came together. They were the Bobby Allison scheme, and the Bobby Allison scheme collide, and then Bobby Zalenski goes around. So you were saying it's called the Triple Bobbies.
Yeah, it was Bobby into Bobby into Bobby. It was tough. And it was not the only time that we saw the 4 and the 46 not only running together on the night, but having some issues later on. But unfortunately, for what I thought was the best-looking car in the field, takes out Bobby Z there, who had been running great. I mean, of course, there was that contact earlier into which he and Alfala actually got into it a little bit, and Alfala was okay, but that's when they were running, I think, both top 5 or top 6 or so. And that might have hindered him a little bit. Maybe that's why he was dropping back. But, I mean, for not having won a race on an oval until the Super Speedway 2 weeks ago, he was looking pretty good up there until things started to come apart. So I think Zalenski's really starting to make himself a formidable challenge. We kind of always know he's going to win the road course races. He's going to be top 5s, top 10s. But I don't know if with this playoff format, of course, the one race to win it all, that it's something that has been in Zalenski's wheelhouse. But he's starting to turn that corner, I believe, to where if we see a couple more good looks like this, I'd put him in my Final Four.
Yeah, he's looking good for sure on the ovals. So it was about 10 later. Casey Kerwin and Brian Schoenberg were not happy with each other. In fact, Schoenberg, after getting kind of ran into by Casey Kerwin, pretty much just took him out in the backstretch.
Yeah, and I think after Kerwin kind of ran into Schoenberg because Schoenberg was slow, and Casey wasn't happy because he felt like Brian was in the road, and Bryant wasn't happy because he felt like Casey ran him over. And they saved it, right? Like we were fine. And then kind of, I think Casey went down to kind of try to block him into the corner to kind of, express his displeasure. And then when he did that, Brian's also thinking, well, I'm in the right, you're in the wrong. And he turned up and kind of cleaned him out. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the admins were taking a look at that one because it was certainly avoidable.
Yep. So the top 3 were pulling away from the rest. It was Keegan Leahy, Mike Conti, Nick Ottinger halfway there. Then 88 to go, a caution. It was Brandon Cattell and Nathan Lyon who got together on this one.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think just a little bit before that incident, we were complimenting Nathan Lyon on how he had been doing a pretty good job, and Cattell is one of those drivers that as well kind of has the good days and the bad days, and he's only got one top 10 this year. It just hasn't been good for Clint Bowyer Racing with he and Schoenberg, of course, who I was just talking about. Involved in that other incident. But that was another cool case because I just wanted to mention, talking about throwbacks, you saw the Willie B guys throwing it back to Byron. But it was cool to see that Cattell was running Clint Bowyer throwback as well on that. But it's just tough luck. And in the case of Nathan Lyon, he's one of those drivers that I think with another year or two, he can be up in a top dozen or so spot in the points. He's just looking for some more experience underneath his belt, and a season like this where it feels like you've gone through the ground. There's a lot of guys, that feel like it's been a cruddy season. By the end of it, 20 of them will tell you it was awful, and everybody above that relegation line is going to be like, it could have been better, but it wasn't awful. There's a lot of guys that have felt like, I think, that it's been a rough year, but I think Nathan Lyon's somebody who, if he can ideally kind of take what this season's been and channel it into a learning experience, because he's still real young, and I feel like he could be a guy that can be around in this series for a while. But it's just Darlington. I mean, you can't get away from anybody. You can't really pull away. You can't separate. You're not really going to fall back from anybody. It was a wild race from Darlington. Honestly, I was surprised when Tim was talking to us in our Tim Facts about how little yellows we had been averaging at Darlington over the years. More than made up for it in what was a bit of a wild night, shall we say, racing under the lights. But it seems like it always is.
Yeah, and that lineup at that point, 73 to go, it was Leahy, Conti, Ottinger, Alfalla, Clampett, Cook, Davies, Luza, and Vincent, and then more Bobby brutality. The Bobby Labonte throwback of Bolin Graham and the Bobby Allison throwback of Jimmy Mullis go for a loop after a checkup from the Colin Keister.
I said it wasn't the first time, and it wasn't going to be the last time. And, you mentioned your favorite car in Graham Bolin involved in that incident. This was a big night for him because, of course, if you keep in mind the fact that he came into the evening ninth, I think. So he's a bubble guy. I mean, Graham Bolin has a really good look at being a playoff driver this year. It was already a tall task because I think it was like 20-something points off for Ray Alfalla, and then a poor result is going to put him I don't think he loses anything points-wise. He's still going to be, I think, 20-ish points out of the bubble, but he opened up the door with that incident for the guys below him like Vincent, Davies, and Mullis didn't have a good night, so I think he stayed ahead of Mullis, but it was a big opportunity lost. Especially when you consider, how it wasn't a great night for Ray.
Right, so let's talk about that. 48 to go, caution for Ray. And this is the ultimate getting freight train. He just slips up a little bit off the bottom. And then after that, everybody's just taking advantage of that and getting on the bottom around him. And he started to fall back, and ultimately Ryan Luza made some slight contact with him that sent him around.
Yeah, and Ray, he gets away with it. When Bobby Zelensky was in the wreck, we didn't really, not that we didn't care that Bobby was wrecked, but, he's one of those guys that's safe enough in points. Now that we have only 2 weeks left, I mean, obviously Graham's incident happened before Ray's, so it's not like he, okay, Ray wrecked out. I should try to get a lot of points here. It just so happened to go the other way around. So I guess you could say it's a missed opportunity for both of them in this case. As Ray gets involved in that little bit of a mess. And it's just, it's funny because we're going to look back on this race, I think, ironically enough, and maybe feel like this is where the tide kind of changed, because Bolin could have picked up a bunch. He doesn't. And he finished down like 25th. In Ray's case, that's probably a top 5 car. He finishes 17th in the race. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's the point spread right there. That 15, 20 points that you dropped. And in Vegas, and we talked about this. I mean, Vegas, anything can happen. Don't get me wrong. And I love Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Of the 1.5 milers, it's one of my favorites. And that's probably a biased opinion because it's just 30 minutes down the road for me. It's my hometown track. But that's like the last safe race, right? I mean, if you had gotten 10 points out of Darlington, 10 points out of Vegas, you get something into Talladega, right? I mean, I don't think there's any way that you could points race at Talladega. We'll find out. They'll try. Don't get me wrong. But, yeah, it's a tough blow for both of those guys, and it makes the championship hopefuls that much more difficult for P8. It's going to make our job easier because we get more drivers in the mix. But if Ray misses out, or I think mainly if Graham misses out, because he was primed, he's going to be kicking himself over what happened this week.
Yep. And then after that, it was Kane Cook and Brad Davies had incredible saves towards the front of the pack on a restart, but lost some critical track position. And then it was kind of the move. I thought I was up on my seat for this one. 40 to go. Conti finally takes a look on the inside of Keegan. But like you said before, it's just not enough without Keegan making a mistake.
No, I mean, we saw a couple of times, even when Conti was like a car length back, he'd stick a nose to the inside, kind of show it to him and see if you could convince him that you're there. But I mean, honestly, even if he only got up on the quarter panel and that was his best look, and he knew it wasn't going to happen, and he backed off, and that honestly is the right move. Or you Truex both cars into the fence and you hand it over to the third. I mean, you could even get to somebody's note, right alongside each other, door to door, nose to nose, and you probably still don't get it. The only time that inside really worked, and again, I'm not saying that there was no passing, because we had guys plus 20s. Overland was one of them who had been making good moves. I mentioned Malik Ray, I think, as well. I mean, you could do it, but that's more so when you had cars that I think didn't qualify well, getting around cars that, ate up their equipment early in a run. When you have guys that are separated by hundreds, you needed a mistake. And I mean, you probably could have put the bumper to him, put him into the wall, try to move somebody out of the way. I mean, that's an option, but that's not how those guys wanted to go at it. And again, without the win and you're in, it's a lose situation for Michael Conti. Does Michael Conti want to win the race? Yeah. But if you wreck somebody for the race win to get one more point,
right?
Then, and you can face supplemental discipline for a guy that is about a race's worth of points above the cut line. Yeah, there was no incentive for Conti to do anything like that.
Yeah, a good second place is a good point. So
yeah, take the points. That's what this system pays off. Without the win and you're in is points, and I think that maybe was why we didn't see guys sending it as much as we did it in the real life race last weekend.
All right, and then 35 to go. Ray Alfalo was making his way back up. He went from 26th to 16th. Quite impressive to watch that when it's so hard to pass. And then 32 to go. Michael Guest gets the wall hard after getting tagged by Tires, but it does stay green. What was neat to watch, though, at the end here is points as they run. I love this, what they do at NASCAR, and you guys were doing it. And then watching the cameras of both the leaders where we could see their face, the intense concentration that Michael Conti has.
Yeah, I love having the onboard cameras, and those live points have been something that Drew and everybody at iRacing had been trying to get for us for a long time, to get that, because basically they're working directly with ATVO and the other companies in which we use the software for. They're working directly with them to get stuff updated on a weekly basis. So it's not like it's we're kind of on our own. So we have that ability to incorporate these kind of formulas and stuff that's well above my pay grade into the broadcast. And we've had that kind of little box on the left-hand side where we can do the points as they run, where we can focus on the battle for P8 or the battle for P20. And then also immediately after the race, we can also get a look. It's probably accurate to within 1 or 2 points, give you a really good idea of that full graphics page with the updated points after the race. I think this is the first week we use that. That's one of my favorite things when I'm watching a race, is seeing somebody drop a spot and seeing it gain 1 or 2 positions on the live point. So that's great for us, and it's going to be that much more valuable when we get to the playoffs, when we're talking, because you can look at all 8 on the bar at once. So yeah, they've been working real hard on that, and it makes our job a lot easier, because I am not a fan of doing math anyways, let alone when I'm trying to call a race and then looking at points and try to figure some things out. It's kind of a prime position for me to embarrass myself. So having the system do it for us really helps.
Yeah, very fun to watch that at the end there. And Keegan Leahy obviously wins the race. It's win number 3 on the season. I want to point out some solid top 10s of some guys who needed it. 5th for Malik Ray, 6th King Cook, 9th Colin Keister, 10th Jake Nichols.
Yeah, big nights. Malik had that huge up. I'm trying to go back and double check because I don't remember where he started, but it was him and somebody else that were super close as far as positions gained. I'm just trying to take a look at where they started. Yeah, I mean, Malik started 30th and finished 5th, so that was plus 25. And Chris Overland finished 12th after starting 37th. I mean, that is big for those two drivers. Obviously, yeah, it's a lot of points. It's not going to be a difference maker when we talk about, either of those guys making a push for the playoffs because, in fact, Chris and Malik were tied for 28th in the points coming into this evening. But you can kind of translate that into, a bit of momentum, a bit of encouragement. That's kind of what I talked about post-race with Keegan, the fact that, Ryan's also got 3 wins. You've got 3 wins. But I think that his are more valuable because Ryan Luzer went on that tear. He won 3 weeks in a row, but he's been kind of spotty since then. And Keegan has been consistent through the year, spacing his wins out. That he's probably the catbird seat coming into this. But it's fun when you get to a track like Darlington that you get to see a couple of different race winners or different guys up at the front of the field. Don't expect anything shocking at Vegas, and then expect total mayhem at Talladega for what's coming up.
Yeah, so let's look at our points and talk Vegas. We got Bobby Keegan, 2nd, Garrett Lowe quietly in 3rd, Michael Conti 4th, Ryan Michael Luza 5th, Nick Ottinger 6th, Logan Clampett 7th, Ray Alfala 8th, and Brad Davies 9th.
Yeah, Davies is a big gain from all of this because he leapfrogs Bolin and Mullis and all those guys, even Vincent. So Brad Davies, I think, is the guy to highlight coming out of this race with a P9 finish. Now, Ray gets away with one with Graham having the issues because I think coming into this race, Ray was up by 15 points, I believe. And, that's not great. But it's better than 2 or 3, and he actually leaves despite the fact that he was involved in an incident. Still finished top 20, but his thing grows from 15 to 20, so he grows and gains 5 points. It's big for Ray. Obviously, our magic number is 45. If you're not 45 points above or below the cut line going into Talladega, you can lose it. That's mathematically. You'd have to finish dead last. The guy behind you would have to win the race, lead the most laps, and all that. But I think that Davies needs to, get another top 10. Get that point spread to 10-ish points because you can gain 10 points, in a lap at Talladega, depending on which line moves somewhere. 20, I think you're at the point where you're hoping Ray gets in a wreck. And that can happen. And Clampett is in a very good spot, granted he doesn't wreck. Because he's an extra 14 points up the road from Ray, so 34 to the cut line. He's in a really good spot. Again, not 45, but if he can just maintain, he's fine. He can ride around in the back. It's going to come down to, Davies, Vincent, Bolin, they're all in the same boat. It just comes down to, does Ray stay out of trouble? And if Ray stays out of trouble and he can keep it close to 20, then the pressure is not on him. The pressure's on the other guys. Whereas if it was down towards 10 points, I think the pressure's on Ray not to lose it. If he can maintain, it's the other guys who are going to have to get creative. And again, at that point, you can win the race. Yeah, but if Ray even finishes 15th, you can't catch him, right? So Vegas, I think right now, more important than Talladega just because it sets up what kind of complexion we're going to see in that regular season finale.
Right. How much stress you may or may not have for Talladega, right?
And that it can be, way stressed out. Don't worry, we'll have the live points. So if you want to know how close it is at Dega, we'll know. And I'm sure the guys on the teams will be relaying that information to their drivers if they have the points race. But, we've been hyping up Talladega. I know that Vegas isn't going to be a crazy show. It could be. Hey, you never know. But yeah, Vegas, far more important than Talladega. That needs to be your concern because it's going to dictate how many gray hairs you have going into that last race of the regular season. Because 10 points, like I said, anything can happen. You get to 15 or 20, I think the onus is on not only do those guys behind you have to run top 5, top 10, but they also need you to wreck. and the chance of both of those happening slimmer than, I finish at the back of this pack, they just squeak it out. So Vegas is going to be huge.
All right, 2 weeks from now, September 23rd. Well, not now, but Tuesdays on our regular night. So don't forget, folks.
Yeah, we're staying with our normal Tuesdays. So it is the as you mentioned, the 22nd, I think, for Vegas, and then so we're going to basically every week -1. So Vegas is going to be the 22nd. We're going to be racing the week after that on the 29th, and we'll talk in between, I'm sure, on the podcast. And then we have a week off, and then we go playoff racing for 4 straight weeks. October 13th at Charlotte, the 20th at Kansas, the 27th at Texas, and then our finale at Homestead on Tuesday, November the 3rd, which then that highlight 1 hour kind of abbreviated broadcast will be shown on NBCSN the week following. So it gets intense. You don't have that 2 weeks off to practice and, be all cute about the setup and, cross the T's and dot the I's. It's going to be a mad dash to the end here.
Wow, I didn't realize it was going week to week, but looking
it's
forward
big,
to
and
it.
that was because of TV. But we're keeping it with it when we move it to Tuesdays. So if we ignore the week off and let's count Vegas, our last 6 races of the year are all within 7 weeks. So if you're a fan of the Coke Series, you're not going to be deprived of content because it'll be coming fast and furious.
Well, thank you, Evan Pasoko, for coming on and talking to us about the Coke race. We loved it this week, and we look forward to Vegas.
Yep, we'll see everybody there on the 22nd.
All right, thank you. All right, cool. Let's jump into, what is it, week 14, and why? Well, it's the release notes. Brian, tell us, start us off.
All right, guys. So everybody knows this is the big week where everything drops. Week 14. Usually it's 13. We had the extra week this time. So some of the highlights coming up on this build are, of course, the Chevy Corvette, the C8R GTE, the Dallara P217. That's the LMP2 car. The new tracks are Crandon International Raceway. That's the Pro Truck track. Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway and Weedsport Speedway. There's some new driver customizations, and we talked about this last week, the environmental sounds, the background sounds that they're putting in. NASCAR tracks have implemented a pit-in and pit-out lights. There's new tire compounds for the McLaren MP4. We talked about those as well, the different tire compounds you can pick from, hard, soft, and medium. You can declare team driver systems.
Let's stop there and talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
David, this is pretty cool, I thought. Did you read about it?
Yeah, we've wanted something like this for a long time. I know that it trades off because you have the issue of, well, what if somebody has an emergency? But you now have to declare who's going to race on the team for the race. And so you can't have somebody who's a 1500 I rating register and then not run the race and have a team of all 6K drivers sandbag and get down on a lower split.
So basically, when you go in and build your team in the iRacing site, where you have a list of your names, you have to kind of like check mark who's going to be in the car before the race starts, right?
Correct.
Pretty cool workaround on that. A couple of our teammates, too, about the other items that Brian just mentioned, I want to bring up. The McLaren with the new tires, Greg was saying that he's excited about that, and he wants to try to run the F1 car this season.
Yeah, I believe he's already tried it out. A lot of us are pretty excited about that Dallara coming out as well. Adam, I know, has bought the Corvette and plans to do a lot of road racing. I'm probably going to play around in the Corvette and the Ferrari and IMSA, but I'll probably keep the LMP1. There were some really nice changes on the LMP1 too that some of my LMP teammates are pretty excited about.
I got to experience the environmental sounds when I was running the Legends car at Daytona last night. You could hear the announcer and the crowd, and it was pretty cool. It's a nice little update.
Now that brings a question, because I know I was only in the race for 3 laps, but last night I couldn't hear anything. Is that a sound setting, or do you also have to have the crowd on?
So when I said I heard it, that was when I was like on the camera. I was out of the car and I was like on a pit lane camera. You could really hear it, but when I was in the car, I couldn't hear anything.
That may have been why. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I didn't hear anything in car either. I'll pay a little bit more attention when I'm looking at the car from outside.
I do my sound a little different than most, but so it's possible I might not even be able to hear it the way I have things set up. But
So,
yeah, go
all right,
ahead.
there's been some going on into some of the other highlights. There's some upgrades to the paint shop, including particularly. I don't think we're going to dive into all the details, so we're just going to kind of hit the highlights. Looks like there's a couple more surface options on the wheels, including the brushed metal, which is
Brushed
kind of
matte,
semi-reflective. Yeah, it's kind of a brushed matte, brushed aluminum kind of look that I go with on a lot of my paints now. So I'm looking forward to that, having that option instead of the pure gloss.
And you can pick your face now and your body type. Now the body type is basically male or female, and obviously the difference is breast on the front, but otherwise the body looks the same. I was kind of hoping for a body with a beer belly, but nope.
So there's no Tony Stewart option.
Right. And then there's a face option where you pick, your complexion, so to speak. The kind of the color of your skin. And, there's about 9 or 12 choices or something. And I picked one I thought was close to what I look like, but it doesn't really look like me.
I haven't really looked at it, but they've added into the UI, not beta UI, but the UI, a League Sessions view.
If you can find it.
We may dive into the details on the UI here in a second. Also, there's been a change to the gain time yield updates. Particularly, it'll start giving you a countdown on how long you have to serve the penalty, so you don't have to kind of guess.
Aha. And then new AI, 5 new AI racing track configurations, and AI drivers are now utilizing defensive driving. And damage model for the global MX-5 Cup car, and then other updates on the damage model system as well.
Yeah, they haven't really had much to say about the Cup car lately, so I'm curious when that will come back out.
Yeah, I'm sure at the end of the Kirk season, I would imagine to implement that. Be my guess.
They don't want weird stuff showing during the broadcast, so let's just wait till it's over. We'll be done in 7 weeks, like Evan said.
Yeah, it's not too far out. The whole thing is not too far off. I mean, we're in the final 9 weeks of NIS as well.
Wow, it's really coming down to the end here. Extensive tire damping updates as well on a bunch of cars. So I think the big thing that people are going to notice is the beta UI. Well, basically they've neutered the website, the front page of the website. All the menus are gone, and they have basically a bunch of links to the beta UI. Now, if you click like down where where you have the green dot in the bottom right where your friends list is, that'll take you to a page where you can see the original menus and website like it used to be. And most everything is there except for the time trials and a couple other things. So don't fret if you get on that home page and you're like, what do I do? Just click over and get on one of the other pages, and all the buttons are there. They only neutered that front page.
And one thing you can still do to save a lot of clicks is if you are in one of the official series that you like to run, and you click on the sessions up in the kind of upper left tab, and you make sure that it actually has a 4-digit number on the at the end of your URL. If you bookmark that, you can use that bookmark to go straight to that division or that series' sessions page and skip all the clicking, not have to scroll through the long list of series and everything. So that option is still there. If you go that way, it still looks like the old site as well.
And we'll talk some more about the beta UI later in the show, but we'll keep going through these release notes. Let's see if there's some other stuff. They did some stuff to dirt where the water content and the dirt track layers below the surface has been adjusted to account for water running downhill along the hard pan. And so we'll have to see how that affects dirt. We talked about AI, a bunch of changes on that, trying to make it better.
Yeah, and looks like they've added three oval tracks to the AI racing lineup. So now you can race at Iowa, North Wilkesboro, and Phoenix raceways. They're up to this point, the AI racing oval list was pretty short. So it looks like they're starting to expand that to some point.
Okay, and let's see what else. Audio, road debris sounds have been added. You'll now hear car parts colliding and scraping on the track, walls, and other cars. There's a new volume slider called In-Car Sound Balance. This has been added to the audio options. This slider lets you tune the volume of your own car's sound when you're in the cockpit relative to the other sounds in the world, such as your opponent's engines. That's a nice touch. So you can really dial in your sound. Like the way I do it is I have the engine sounds out speakers and then have all voice stuff through my headphones.
And we already talked about the environmental sounds. This one I found particularly interesting. Next down on the list was the pit stop. They've increased the timeout on the fuel man, which may solve an issue where the car fails to get fuel during a pit stop. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, you've had that 2 weeks in a row where it wouldn't fill the car.
Yeah.
It happened twice actually before the last podcast. Yeah, it just didn't fill the car, and I did not uncheck it. So, yeah, hopefully that's what my issue was.
New hats on the pit crew. What else here? Some track characters. It says some level of detail settings have been adjusted to provide smoother visual transitions as the camera changes distances from track marshals, photographers, race officials, and Barney, the legendary flagman. Spotter. A new French spotter pack has been added.
Allons-y.
Italian too, right?
How about this one? Spectators. Some additional race control information is now available for event spectators that was not being sent before, including course flags and session timers. So now you can see when it goes yellow if you're spotting.
Looks like they've added the latest True Force wheels, the G923, the Logitech new wheel. They've added the support for all that in the controller section.
You have to go in and check mark that you have a True Force wheel, I guess.
They have moved the telemetry to a separate thread on CPUs that will then the physics thread, and hopefully that can avoid some issues that might be causing stuttering.
And if you remember last week, we talked about the Logitech backlight on their keyboards, on their backlit keyboards. That still has not, they still haven't fixed that bug yet. So that was going to happen later, apparently.
And then updates to the cars. I mean, I'm looking through the road cars right now, guys. Tons of changes here. All setups, and just lots of little things, you know.
Yeah, we've already talked about the two new cars and effectively the McLaren. I'm just going to go ahead and call the MP430 also a new car. They've done so much to it. They automated the deployment system on it, giving you a lot more options, but also improved its automatic control. You have the 3 compounds. Basically a new car. Also, I believe both of the LMPs basically have a new tire. Somebody was swearing up and down in the past that they had already been moved to the new tire, but there's been some changes, and one of the guys that I run some of the endurance stuff with was really happy with them. Says it feels more realistic.
I heard good things about the GTE cars because they got an updated tire model like the Ferrari and the Ford. I haven't tried it myself. The Mazda MX-5 Cup also got updated tire.
Yeah, the description on one of the other shows that covers the service discussed or mentioned that there should be more middle ground when selecting which side of which whether you want to go stiff or not stiff, or any of the options that you might go with. There should be more viable middle grounds instead of everybody just having to take it all the way to the max stiffness or the max softness and so on.
I want to stop here on the 87 Cup car. They increased the tire damping by 70% to reduce the rolling and bouncing that sometimes occurs with a stiff front suspension. Tire rubber properties have been adjusted slightly. Stagger has been increased. Ballast movement range has been opened. Third gear ratio changed. Low end torque has been increased. Drafting parameters slightly updated. And yeah, we'll talk more about the 87 Cup car later in the show too. But what about the regular Cup car?
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, in the regular Cup cars, they've added a high downforce package at the Daytona road course. So I'm assuming that's going to be a little bit more stable to drive on the road course when you're doing the NASCAR Cups there.
Well, and they also, I noticed, did the same thing with the tire damping that they did to the 87 car and adjusted the tire rubber properties. But it also said longitudinal and lateral toe compliance has been updated. So I ran the Cup car today and I didn't, think it felt any different than it did before the build. But
Yes,
the
so
87 car is much different story.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing.
Okay, what else do we have in the notes, guys? Is there anything else?
It just goes over the details of the new tracks, which Weed Sport, that's a rally car track, isn't it?
Dirt,
or is that it?
dirt
Or is that
oval.
the dirt oval?
It's a
Okay.
dirt oval.
Weed Sport's the dirt oval. One of them was a
Crandon.
rally track. Crandon's the rally track.
I'm going to buy that. I haven't bought it, but I am going to buy it probably this weekend.
And then they actually did some changes to the old Legacy Phoenix. That's interesting. I didn't think they would actually do any support on the older tracks.
So, I know, because we're waiting for them to build a new one there. But
Of course,
yeah.
Of course, we got the new Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, so that one's a new track.
Yep. All right, let's keep moving. Let's talk, Brian, about the iRacing Petit Le Mans.
Le Petit Malin. So Greg West announced in the forums that there's going to be a Le Petit Le Mans, which is it's a 10-hour endurance race that's held annually at Road Atlanta in Georgia, and it's a marquee IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship event. So they're going to be running this between October 2nd and 4th. There's 2 time slots for it. There's a Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and there's also one at Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. That's 9 a.m. The sessions are going to be a 30-minute warm-up with a 15-minute or a 4-lap qualifying. The race is 10 hours. So that's coming up. It should be fun. And I guess it's going to be using the new cars, I would imagine, right?
Yeah,
It looks like it's it does have the Chevy Corvette in there and the LMP too, so it'll be using the new cars as well.
Okay, so that's October 2nd through 4th. Next up is, hey, that's not a shifter, is it? We got a forum post by Nicholas Orth. He noticed that his in-car camera in the NASCAR Toyota Camry, when he pointed it at the gear shifter where he could see it, it was kind of missing from the cockpit and had been replaced with what appears to be a Ray Besto's brake caliper. Nick Leap from iRacing responded, "That is weird, and we'll get the proper shifter put in." But there's a screenshot, and sure enough, you look at where the shifter is, and you can see Ray Besto's right on the side of the brake caliper.
Yeah, that is really weird. I don't even, I can't even contemplate how that could happen.
Yeah, how did that happen,
So-
right?
Those code errors can sneak in. And speaking of sneaking in, it looks like Jimmy Broadbent got to sneak into a couple of the cars early, according to the forum. According to this forum post, he was streaming some of the content.
Before the release date, right?
I don't see access to the actual stream on the forum post, and then it just goes into a bunch of rambling about people kind of joshing with each other. But that's interesting. That's kind of a good idea, and I'm sure they have some people beta testing them too. However, I wonder if there's any, I know the beta testers have NDAs, so I hope he didn't break his NDA if he's one of the beta testers.
No, I think iRacing approved of it because they actually retweeted his initial, "Hey, I'm going to be streaming this," and so they were in on it. It appears. I saw the video on I think YouTube after it was over, and it was a 4-hour video of him running these two cars.
It's good promotion then.
Yeah, I thought it was a neat idea, and it gave people an idea, a time to see those cars when we wanted to see them, before the release.
Yeah, it gives a little taste of that thing, makes you whet your appetite, makes you want to buy it a little bit more, maybe. Yeah. So it looks like this next one is a listener submission. So that's really cool. So listener Scott Ebersol, he submitted a link to us to what is called the iRacing Weekly Planner. It's a site that lets you refine the iRacing weekly races into a more manageable list that customizes your preferences, such as what your favorite series, favorite tracks, favorite cars, and license restrictions and all that stuff. So yeah, it's a really neat website, and you can really customize it to your preferences, and it's apparently it's going to be updated each week with the new tracks that come out each week, and it's kind of what I almost wish that you could do on the website on the old user interface, I guess, but we're never able to do. Kind of clear out some of the junk that you weren't interested in to make it a little easier for you to plan your week out.
What a beautiful interface this website is.
If you go to the official racing guide or the unofficial racing guide, it has about the same options.
Yeah, so it's got, I'll describe it for our listeners. This website is iracing-week-planner.tmo.lol, and there's check marks along the left that are easily accessible for oval, road, dirt, rally, and then license, A, B, C, D, and so forth. Official, unofficial, open or fixed. And then content, do I own it or not? And then favorites. And so you can, with all these different check marks, you check which ones you want, and then it presents basically a weekly planner of races in order based on date and start time.
Yeah, and a lot of the same options are on the Find Official Races page. I think the biggest thing is having the unofficial option. I don't think that shows up when you go to Find Official Races.
Right. And with the whole user interface thing, kind of two different ways of doing it, this is kind of timely. People might gravitate to a website like this. Like, I want to plan out what I'm going to race, but I don't want to be in the beta UI to do it.
Well, can you actually use it to join the race, though?
No.
No, I don't think you can. It's just
Actually, yes, you can.
They got a link?
If you click on the little link icon on the far right, it takes you to Series Sessions, which is the same bookmark I was telling everybody about earlier.
Ah, perfect.
Okay, so yeah, it's even better than I thought, hey?
Now, there is some setup to this. You have to go in on at the top under Set My Tracks and Set My Cars and check mark which ones you actually own so the website knows. Now, we've talked about this a long time ago, but Scott obviously understands that it's timely to bring this up again. Very cool. You get a link on our show notes. Next up is the a preview video of that Global Mazda MX-5 Cup new damage model. And this was kind of interesting video to check out, showing the Mazdas basically getting pretty tore up. Little 1 minute
it was
video.
really cool. Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, you could tell a lot of times they're purposely crashing, so it doesn't look like too many actual racing incidents that you would normally see, but the actual deconstruction of these cars in these accidents is pretty impressive.
Yeah, to see the hood come off, or the whole front clip, so to speak, or the bumper, or the wheels, getting all cockeyed or even coming completely off. But a good highlight reel of what the new damage model is capable of. They don't mess around. They show a bunch of different wrecks right on top of each other, so you get a really good feel of it.
So we're kind of in the younger side of figuring out how to develop our setups. I can adjust a setup. I can't build one from scratch, and I probably should try using this website as I'm trying to build a setup. It's called the Setup Development Guide, and it's basically a setup of questionnaires. It's supposed to help you actually walk you through the process of tweaking a setup.
Yeah, so I clicked on it, and it's got a thing that you go through, like go to Spring Setup. You click on it, and it tells you, hey, here's what we're going to cover, and then and you go through it.
So on the Spring setup, the very first thing I look at is, does the car bottom out? And I can feel if the car is really bottoming out, but when we look at the telemetry on VRS, I'm struggling to identify it in the ride height, where it's really hitting, or if it's just barely kind of scraping.
Yeah, simracing-setupguide.com. Check it out. I'm not into setups very much, so it's kind of over my head.
So it looks like we have a second listener submitted
Love these.
Item for us. Yeah, it's great. So this is from show listener Daniel Coxon. He shared a video that he put on YouTube, and it highlights a few clips from over the years of his iRacing, and it's a really good video. I'm assuming that he did all the editing and stuff like that. It's really well done. It has it's done to the song of a remix of Michael Jackson's "Beat It." But it's really well done. It looks like he highlights the Australian supercars quite a bit on it. I guess that might be his car of choice. But it's really well made, and I appreciate the shout out from Daniel.
It's Michael Jackson, but as electronic dance techno kind of mix and a remix, so to speak. And I love the video editing style that he put together here. Lots of different colors, and then uses black and white, and he uses slow motion, regular speed, all kind of mixed together with quite a few different highlights. But like you said, mostly the supercar, but there are some other cars and different things in here. But nice video, Daniel. Check him out on YouTube, Daniel Coxon, Coxon. Great video. So another video is posted by iRacing this week leading up to the build, and this one was the onboard for the LMP2 Dallara around Imola, Daytona, and Lime Rock Park. And so they just threw up a video of somebody taking laps, just so you could hear the car and just see what it looks like.
Yeah, this was another teaser that they released before the new build came out, so you could really get you excited about the new car. It's fantastic, man. The iRacing always does great jobs on their videos, and this is no exception.
I gotta say again, I'm super stoked that they put this in the IMSA class or the IMSA division instead of just the WEC, because it's gonna be nice, even if you stay in one of the other classes. It's gonna be nice to actually have 3 classes running the races again instead of just almost all GTEs and a few GT3s and 2 Dallaras out there.
It'll be popular too. I mean, there'll probably be a lot of people running it.
Oh, quite a bit.
Right.
Speaking of one of the other cars that's probably been a little bit popular lately, there's a new California Clash coming up, which is accepting entries. It's a special event that's celebrating the 30th anniversary of Days of Thunder. Shall we say infamous or iconic? One of the two. It's featured in the 87 Monte Carlo and Ford Thunderbird at Auto Club Speedway. And they're going to have a series of heat races and a last chance qualifier to grid the 24 of the drivers. And then there's also 20 invited starters.
Right, like famous people kind of thing.
It starts around September 17th, going through the 19th is when all of the heat races will be, as well as the LCQ is on the 19th. And we have a link, or if you go to their forums, it's basically actually a Google form that you can apply.
Yep. And so I don't know exactly who the celebrity racers are, but or who's actually behind this, but should be an interesting event.
Yeah, I had trouble finding any of the 20 invited drivers that they have going. I did see Malik Ray was in it. I don't know if he's gone through the qualifying rounds or if he was one of the invited guests or not. But yeah, he's the only name that I saw that was currently attached to this.
Aha, I found some names. Okay, so if you look on their Twitter and you go back in time, you can see they've been announcing. So I'm going to read off some of them I see here. So first of all, they have an announcing team of Bob Jenkins, Alex Hayden from MRN, and Justin Prince. Is a $10 entry fee. And I see that they've asked Casey Kerwin to join them, Anthony Alfredo, Bobby Labonte, Trevor Perry, Malik Ray. I don't know who that is. Landon Huffman. And then Bernard Pollard is also, I think, there.
If they're listening, they need to get an invite out to Elliott as well, Sadler. Though I know he's been pretty busy with his baseball team. He coaches Little League, and they're right in the middle of playoffs at the moment.
I would guess Landon Castle's behind this, but it's hard to say. Because we haven't heard from Landon for a while, so.
Yeah, and he pulled off that race at Daytona really well. The Firecracker. That was great.
Yeah, this is very similar, but California. So
I wonder if any actors will be in there from the movie. Wouldn't that be cool? Tom Cruise will be in it, maybe.
So this is big news, Brian. This next one, I didn't see this coming.
Yeah. Apparently, it came out in a release written by Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. They reported that NASCAR has submitted plans to convert the California Speedway to become a half-mile short track. So they're going to take that big, wide, D-shaped oval of California and cut it down to a half-mile track. Now, if you remember, there was some talk earlier in the year that they were thinking about getting rid of the track completely. So this might have been their compromise to cut down a lot of the space that this track takes up, to use some of it for some other things, and keep a track at the site.
Right, keep the date and keep the market, so to speak. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like California Speedway. I'm a little dismayed by this, but initially it would just come out that this was happening. But then earlier today, we heard that from Steve Myers from iRacing that, and Jeff Gluck wrote an article about it on theathletic.com just today, that NASCAR and iRacing actually built this brand new track, this half-mile track in iRacing, and have tested it before they even submitted the plans for change. And this is another first for iRacing.
So iRacing is now the AutoCAD for NASCAR.
What a
Yeah,
great idea, though,
that's a good way
to
of
just
putting it. Yeah.
see, if it does it work. Can they get up to fourth gear before they have to, slow down again, and just the most basic things is the, track viable.
Well, I mean, at the Daytona Roval, we immediately found out how horrific it would be to be slowing down from those higher speeds with those small brakes. That's why they figured out basically through iRacing they're going to need to put that chicane in.
Yeah, so NASCAR and iRacing built and tested the new Auto Club Speedway track is the name of the article. And I'm going to read the first part of it because you have to pay to read the whole thing. It says the phone call came to iRacing in April. It was Ben Kennedy, former racer and NASCAR vice president of racing development, asking Steve Myers if he was interested in an unprecedented assignment NASCAR wanted to undertake. Using iRacing's virtual track building tools, would Myers and his team assist NASCAR in configuring the real-world redesign of Auto Club Speedway? The result, converting the speedway from a 2-mile track into a half-mile high-banked short track, as first reported by The Athletic on Tuesday.
And I think from what I saw in some plans they had, they're trying to keep that front straightaway in like that curve, that D curve that Auto Club has currently. So it's not going to be like a completely straight front stretch. You really don't see that on any of the other short tracks in NASCAR. They're usually pretty straight. Bristol and Martinsville, they're just
Well,
straight lines there.
you do at Richmond and Memphis; those are more D-shaped.
That's true, but they're a little bit bigger, but not that much, I guess.
So this has a paperclip look to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be real sharp turns,
Martinsville,
high banks.
but with banking?
That's the way I saw it from the drawing I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So initially I put this on the show because, hey, they're going to change California. We probably won't be racing that configuration because we're going to have to rescan it and have the half mile. But then today we hear that, iRacing is the one who actually designed it. They already have it in the can.
Well, I'm sure they would actually scan the actual
The real
surface
rate, yeah.
once it's down because it's going to have a character that can't be simulated
The
without
bumps.
scanning the character. Yeah.
Yep. And so I guess they would call that a rebuild? I don't know. Yeah, it's another first. Okay, let's keep moving. Another preview video came out, the Corvette video, and they were just all over it with these videos and kept us very busy throughout the week. But it was an onboard of the Corvette, which Tom Dreiling told us he just absolutely fell in love with after one lap.
I tell you what, another thing is going through some of the forums and some of the other things I'm associated with. I've never seen so many people put out car paint schemes for this car so quickly. I mean, everybody's really digging this car, I think, and want to paint it up the way they want.
Yeah, and they got the templates out early enough so they could get it ready.
We've had the Ford for a while, but other than that, most of the road cars have been, not American-based companies. So this, I'm sure, excites a lot of the American road racers.
Yeah, iconic brand. Yeah, we definitely love our Corvette.
We were just talking about scanning equipment, and basically sort of had a paparazzi sighting of a van that's fitted with laser scanning equipment at Watkins Glen, reported by member John Joseph Garcia. He says he can't confirm that it actually was at the track, and there's no iRacing label on the van or something, but it stokes the hopes that we may get an update with Watkins Glen at some point.
I bet it's not iRacing with the Corona and everything, and at New York. They're not going to New York right now.
Well, it is upstate, and so they could actually, where are they? Delaware or New Hampshire? That's not that too far from New York. They could go do that without even getting a hotel.
Yep. So this was on Reddit, actually, is where he initially found it. There's no picture at all. It just says, hey, we saw a white van with laser scanning equipment fitted to it. And then somebody pointed out that iRacing doesn't scan with equipment rigged to vehicles. Sounds like you saw a Google Street View van.
That could be. Who knows? That's funny. All right, guys. So we're starting to get to the fun stuff now. iRacing posted a video on their YouTube channel giving you a introduction to the new Racing UI. This is a short video. It goes over some basics on their new UI system. Gives you some good pointers, I think, to get you started into it. But yeah, it definitely doesn't go into the kind of detail that most of the people are going to be wind up needing. So maybe there's more videos to come, but especially with some of the people having difficult time switching over this new UI. So I guess this is a start for them to start reaching out and saying, here's how to use our system now.
Well, they made a new dashboard that is different when you first open it, where it has buttons on the right, big old buttons to get you to certain places like official or league or paint, and that kind of thing. You can still pull up the menus on the left that were there before, but they kind of are hidden. You have to click a button to bring them up and so forth. But they got tabs along the top, which will take you to various places. So it's just an introduction to that. I don't know if this softens the blow a little bit of the Switch for some people. I don't think it did.
Yeah, I don't think so just yet. Like I said, it's not detailed enough to really walk you through the whole thing. It's really just kind of an overview of the dashboard layout and stuff.
And while we're on the topic, I'm going to kind of jump ahead to one of the other stories I have listed here. I posted my thoughts about the new UI because I've been reading the forums to see what the feedback is. And the feedback in general is not great. I mean, there's some people that like it, but most people don't. And it's for a variety of reasons, but I think I wanted to point out my reason. So I'm just going to point out what I said. And I sat down for a minute and I said, okay, what do I do on the website if I'm not racing that I sit down at the website and do? Maybe on my iPhone or if I'm at my computer. What is a normal little task, so to speak? And I wanted to see if I could recreate that task in the new UI or not, and how fast was it. So I decided to look up where do I stand in points in NIS. So I actually went into the UI and I took a really good shot looking for points, and I literally couldn't find it. And David, I think I asked you if you could look and see if you found it, and you couldn't find it either.
Nope. Basically, there's not a stats option, I guess, at least from the series page.
So maybe I just picked the one thing that they forgot to put in the beta UI. I don't know. But I do know on the website I can click once, just one click, and get to my stats for that season. One mouse click. How about some other information? Like, I just want to know about the NIS. Like, I want to look at the schedule and see what's next week. What's the track next week? Simple question, right? So I click on the official racing button in the new dashboard they have and presented a grid that shows a bunch of different, racing. But they don't put the name of the series on the grid if they have more than one car. They get rid of the name of the series and they put it has 3 cars. But if you hover over the logo, it shows you the name of the series. So you have to take your mouse and hover over the logo just to see every little name of every series. Now, if you don't recognize the logo, it's quite cumbersome. So I took 2 simple things. I wanted to see what the race is next week, and I wanted to see where I am in points. And the UI failed. And I can't say it any nicer than that. It's a crappy UI. they would be better off just doing a carbon copy of what the website currently is and putting it in the UI. If they did that, they would solve 90% of people's gripes with this thing.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just a matter of getting used to something new. You know, a lot of people have difficulty with change that they've been using for some people, 10, 11 years. But it's not that it's different. It's more difficult.
It's worse. That's the thing. It's not that it's different. It's worse than it was before. And it's supposed to be better, right? Maybe that's not the goal, is to make it better, you know?
Well, if something like being able to look up stats is missing, that's not something that's a small deal. That's something that probably most people should be interested in looking at, right? The standings for a series.
I can't even see what the race is next week. I mean, for them to take it out of beta.ui, beta, with these kind of obvious holes that, and you can go through the forum posts and you can read page after page after page of examples, like I just said, other people's examples of how, I have to click 50 times to do what I have to click 5 times to do on the website.
Now, I didn't have too much trouble finding the schedule, but that should have a stats page on that same page.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm an old guy, and maybe it's teaching an old guy new tricks, but I'm not the only person saying it. So they have a big hurdle. This is probably the most important project that iRacing has done, because there's a lot of blowback really about this, and a lot of people aren't liking it. And I've said it before. I just think it's the way they're designing it. They need to try something different. Okay, so I was jumping around a little bit. Let's move on. Let's talk Magic Tires. This is a quick hit. Thomas George posted a picture in the forums of his Xfinity car after the build that seemed to be missing tires, wheels. We don't have any responses from the staff yet. I think this was just earlier today, but literally his car is on the track with no wheels on it. You can see the brake calipers and everything.
Yeah, hopefully they save the replay in some logs, and they'll find it. It's these bugs, they can sneak in, and they have beta testers, but you never know what's really going to pop out there until you put it out in deployment.
It makes you think that maybe he ran out of tires on the tire limit, and then they took off the last set, maybe? Didn't put on a new set? Maybe it has something to do with the tire limit rule?
It may have something to do with the new tire graphics settings.
So I'm assuming this car drove normally. It just didn't show the tires, I'm assuming.
Right, visually.
I think I've heard of a few bugs from some friends with this new release. So I'm sure that you're going to be seeing quite a few patches coming up. I'm sure.
So they did make a huge GTE Aero update for all of the GT cars, particularly of the Le Mans class. The Greg Rest posted there's changes where the downforce, drag, balance sensitivities to ride heights, yaw steer, and other settings are going to change and improve the drivability of the cars. And they made a lot of these changes based on real world data. So I'll let you know how that goes over the next season. He does say that most of the setups are no longer going to be optimized.
So enough aero change, you got to redo your setups. That's what he's saying. Yep. Okay, real quick, there was also a video from Crandon about the Crandon International Raceway they dropped as well. So they put out videos of all the new content. And then I want to talk about the 87 stock car. There's a lot of chatter in the forums since the update about the 87 stock car that not a lot of people are happy with the updates. one of the threads was called RIP, rest in peace. But we did hear from Matt Holden, who from the staff, about the changes, and he said they didn't really change the car. They updated the setups. They changed the tire a little bit, and they changed the low end torque, like we read in the release notes. But a lot of people are saying this car kind of drives more like the A car now. When we're running it at Daytona last night, it's like a pack racing, when before it really wasn't, because the car was so hard to drive. Now, I drove it, and it was easier to drive than it used to be. But I thought the changes were okay. I wasn't complaining about them. But there's a lot of people in the forums that are complaining about it, and they're like, put it back the way it was, and da 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 da, and that kind of thing. And they're saying that the car is ruined and so forth.
Well,
so I'm sure that they'll adjust.
Matt Holden has a good reply on here, though, that they basically have gotten the main changes. They've gotten better at building the setups for the car, and this is something you're going to run into in any fixed series, which is one of the things that started to kind of push me away from fixed series. Fixed setup doesn't necessarily mean it's who's the best driver. It means who's the best driver in that set. All right. So if I like a looser car, I'm not going to be good if every one of the fixed setups is crazy tight. Some driver who's particularly more comfortable in those tight cars is going to have an advantage. There's been controversies in leagues that use custom fixed setups if the person creating the setup is in the race, because that setup is going to be probably to his or his teammates' liking, right? That's just something you're going to run into with fixed setups. So not everybody is ever going to be happy with a fixed setup race, and something that may seem easier is just because it's more suited to a certain driving style.
Yeah, poster in the forums was Ty McQuitter, who's been around for 9 years, and he says the car's been nerfed big time. What a bummer. What was once a really fun car has been stripped of that, and what made it a lot of fun. Really hope iRacing considers backpedaling on some of the changes made. But I tried to run that car 3 or 4 times last night. I kept getting wrecked out, but because I wanted to see what all the hubbub was about. Because I actually saw on Twitter a lot of people complaining about the car, and that's like, well, I've got to go try it. But the few laps I did get in, it seemed to be okay. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of making a car difficult to drive just for the sake of making it difficult to drive. I mean, if I'd rather them just try to get as close to real life as they can. Now, again, we're dealing with a car, that's it's a few years old, that they don't really have anything to test it out with, other than in a simulation. So, my contention would be just try to make it as close as it would really be in real life, and go from there.
Well, and that was part of the forum thread discussion was, hey, go look at the 87 race at Daytona in real life, and you'll see that they're not pack racing like we are this week. So there's definitely something not right if we're trying to match up to what real life is. And so I think iRacing has some work to do there. Okay, show notes. We really don't have, or podcast housekeeping notes. Don't forget our show notes. They're in the description of every podcast. There's a link where you can get to the PDFs and get all of our different links. Don't forget we're on the Performance Motorsports Network. We're going to skip fantasy because Tony's out buying a car, and go right into hardware, software.
All right, guys. So we're starting this week with a company called Sim Projects. That's SYM Projects. It's their website is simproject.com. It's a UK-based company, and they have some new gauges available. These are you can get them as analog gauges or digital gauges. They run 87 for an analog and 104 for the digital gauge. They would probably just mount somewhere on your rig, but I think that sounds like a pretty reasonable price for what you're looking at here.
That's what I was thinking, Brian, is the price is amazing. I think I've seen these before, but they're like several $100s.
Yeah, now there is a controller that you have to buy that's not included in that price, but the controller wasn't. I thought it was like $30 or $40, maybe something like that. But yeah, these are really good looking gauges, and man, if you're looking for gauges, I would definitely be checking this out. Again, it's simprojects.com, and take a look at what they got. It's really nice gauges. They have red and blue backgrounds, with the red the limiter lights on them and everything else. It's really nice looking gauge.
And then not only just tachometer, but speedometer. You got a water temperature gauge. There's even a fuel gauge as well, and oil temperature. I mean, like you could get everything and like build a dash. Freaking cool! I love that one.
Yeah, it's really cool looking.
I just always laugh a little when we're talking about all the stuff that's visual out right in front of you, considering almost the whole team runs VR.
Right, you wouldn't even be able to see it.
Good point. Yep. Be nice for your streaming.
Yeah, if you had a secondary, like if you had a second camera over the shoulder or something, that would be pretty cool.
Correct. Yeah.
People don't really want to see my face anyway. Who cares? So I may actually move the camera to the other side of the chair. The next item on the list is the SimMagic wheelbase and wheels. It's an Instagram post featuring a nice looking wheel and the SimMagic base, which includes wireless communication. These are the ones that were manufactured over in China, aren't they, Mike? Or is it Hong Kong? Okay. Well, some people say that counts as China. So we've talked about the quality of them before, which is we don't know a whole lot. But if somebody on this side of the pond is promoting them now and supporting them, this might be a good option as far as affordability goes.
Yeah, this post was by Nolan Simulation, and apparently they're selling these. So since 2015, I have trouble finding their website though. So I don't know if they're just on Instagram or what, but it's NOLIN, and he's saying he's selling these things. So I think Jeffrey Ford, FEG, is selling them in the U.S. as well. So there are options if you want to buy one of these wheels. The next thing we saw on Instagram was Racebox has a new button box with 19 in-game inputs available. Pretty cool looking. It's got the carbon fiber on the front, some nice colors with different kinds of switch, a push engine start as well as toggle, and then a brake bias, traction control, ABS knobs.
And I'm sure you could reprogram them to whatever you want, because there's no ABS on a cup car. Actually, most of the sports cars don't even have ABS unless you get onto the GT3.
Yeah, so this is racebox.sim, and they are out of Mexico, actually.
I don't really see how you mount that, though. It's got the box behind it, but I don't see any issues with how you would put that on your rigs.
Yeah, they don't really show the back very well.
You'd probably definitely need a tray of some kind to mount the next item.
Yeah, it's the SimForce Engineering is testing the new design for their accelerator pedal, Force Engineering Mark 1 pedal with the optional curved aluminum pedal pad. So they're testing this new pedal out. They're actually they're looking for professional motorsports drivers to test the pedals. So that's kind of interesting. That they want some people with some real life experience to test these. It's a decent looking pedal. It looks like it's spring loaded, and the pedal design is really nice. Looks solid enough, easy to mount.
Yeah, SimForge_engineering, and apparently they're going to be selling these pedals. They look pretty good. With the spring, they're not like hydraulic or anything like that, but. And if you look at
I
their
didn't see
main
any.
page,
They didn't have any.
you can see their older pedals. So this is some kind of new design they're working on. Again, I don't have prices on these. These are like Instagram finds. So
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I couldn't find any pricing listed anywhere on this.
the next Instagram find is Sim Wheel Designs put up their Porsche 911 GT3R wheel coming soon, and it's pretty loaded. It's got the nice Porsche logo right in the middle, but it looks like a replica kind of wheel. So another coming soon product. So when we get a price and update on that, we'll let you know what it is. But I imagine that you're going to be paying extra just because of the Porsche logo.
Yeah, it seems like whenever they put their name on something, the price jumps up quite a bit.
Okay. And now this wheel, we do have a price on, and this is one of the most expensive wheels we've ever seen.
Yeah, this one does have a price. It's the Precision Engineering GPX steering wheel, and that can be found at precisionengineering.com. So this is a formula wheel. It's listed at $23.99. So 2,399. Is that euros? That's not euros. That's pounds, right?
Pounds, yeah.
So so I have to find out what the conversion is for that, but I'm sure it's not cheap. But the wheel itself is fantastic looking. The buttons are all over the place. It's got a LCD screen in the center of it.
They're
It's
better.
not, with all your telemetry. Yeah, right. The telemetry in there, and it's a beautiful, beautiful wheel. But you're going to be paying for it if that's what you want.
PrecisionSimEngineering.com. Yeah, we've talked about this a long time ago, but it is one of the most expensive wheels you can buy, and it looks pretty sharp.
So we have some motion rigs that have 4 degrees of motion or freedom. Some that have the 6, right? Those kind of triangular mounts. How about infinite degrees of motion?
Well, how do you do that?
You make a circle and then just roll it around. This is the Nova. We got a link to this next motion rig, and it's basically a ball, and I assume that it's got some kind of track that or wheel that just rotates in 3 different locations, and you can turn it in any direction. Pretty insane. I'd love to check it out. I'm really curious if you can actually completely strap into the seat and completely invert if you're like in a flight simulator,
flight sim, yeah.
or if you roll your car, right?
This is crazy. So visually, it's like a VR, driving, rig, cockpit inside this clear ball. And then the ball moves and can rotate, like you said, any direction, any way. So you see the guy in there driving, and the ball's kind of rolling around depending on which way he's turning the wheel.
It kind of reminds me of those balls in Jurassic World where they're driving around the park in. It's all glass around the whole ball. It's pretty weird. The question is, would everything have to be wireless that's inside of that ball? I mean, how do you get? There's got to get wires in there.
Yeah, how do you get power into it, right?
Right. Even if the PC's in there, you had to have a power cord running to a PC.
Right.
There's no place for a monitor, so it's basically just designed for VR. But yeah, if you've solved the problem with getting power to all of your equipment in there, wow, it's pretty neat.
Can you imagine the cost?
Yeah, it's got to be expensive, and the wires may be the very thing that limits just how much it can actually really turn. You may only be able to turn a certain direction, a certain distance each direction before you hit a limit.
you got to imagine the wires are coming up through the bottom because there's no other place where they could be. And yeah, there's probably some limitation there.
Right, so no inversions then.
All right, we're going to hit one more. KMH Simulation is out of Argentina. KMH Simulation has formula-style wheels, keypads for Logitech, Thrustmaster, Fanatec, and Open Wheel. And their website is KMH Simulation, but with the Spanish spelling of simulation with a C. And let's see, they got, we saw this on Instagram, and they have this nice Ferrari wheel with a Ferrari logo. Their website doesn't appear to be working, for me anyway. I think it worked earlier in the week when I tried it.
Yeah, I'm having trouble too.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, if you in Argentina, you can get sim hardware from this company. They have wheels at least for sale. Okay, so with that, we're going to jump to results, and that's going to be next. So let's talk first. The we are sponsored. Our results are by the Eucora 2020 Throwback Indie Series. They didn't run last week, but
Yes, I did.
they did. So
Yeah, we were at Pocono.
Oh, that's right.
Yep,
You remember who got the poll?
I'm afraid not, and we didn't get an update from Scott, and I didn't ask him for an update. So I'll make sure and double up next week because we're running at Sonoma tonight, and I'll get both updates for next week.
Sonoma. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be very good at Sonoma. So
It's not too hard in a Formula car. It's way different than driving in a Cup car.
okay, maybe I'll start in the back. We'll see. But let's talk NIS. Let's finish up Darlington. It was a 100% race. Thursday fixed. Tom Dreiling ran P3, a great run. Used a bit of strategy. Probably only fixed one. Probably only fixed one I will do this week. You know, based on the 100%. Friday Open. Tom also ran. He got a P8. Dang, qualified on the pole. Had a fast hot rod. Led a bunch of laps, speeding on pit road. Without it, probably would have won the race. That has been my week here in Open. The car is great. Driver makes a big mistake late. One more chance on Sunday.
Tony put in here wrecked. He said he tried to stay back, but on the long run found himself within the top 10. Sixth place checked up right in front of him. He couldn't stop, and then he was rear-ended and front-ended into the wall, but he at least made it 80 laps.
Okay, Sunday Open. P14 top split, David.
Yeah, I'm not terribly great pace. I hit the wall far too many times. It was a tough field, but a lot of people got wrecked out. I probably deserved a worse finish, but so many people didn't survive that I still snuck away with the 14th.
Which is a good run for top split. Good points. Tony Rochette, P5, finally made it more than 80 laps. Screwed myself by passing the pace car under caution going into the pits as P1. Mad face.
And Tom Dreiling, P7, top split, qualified 9th. He outran me. He had a fast car. He outqualified me as well. Spun early, no cautions, fell 2 laps down on the first run, but due to his self-spin, which killed the tires. But he worked his way back up through the lead lap, and with the help of right timing on the cautions, he made, P7. So he was pretty happy with getting his first top 10 in the top split, as far as I know.
Yeah, nice run for sure. So let's switch gears to Richmond. Wednesday Open, David dumped on the lap 3.
Yeah, I was just trying to let the guys, it was top split. I was trying to let those guys who never qualify but are fast just blast by, and I let off maybe just a little early, and instead of the guy diving under me like I was expecting, he rear-ended me. So I don't think if I'm like car 32 again, and it's a car I don't or truck I don't feel comfortable with, I probably should just not qualify so that I can stay out of that situation.
I mean, we talked right before the race too. Let these guys go. Let these guys go. You know.
Well, that's the thing. I was all the way up on the wall, on the straightaway, and I just let up just a little bit earlier. And I guess I caught him surprised. He's not somebody that you would consider just traditionally dirty racer. He's really clean. So I know he wasn't trying to dive bomb me or anything. So we'll call it an accident.
Okay. Talk about accidents. I finished. No, I didn't finish. I wrecked out Wednesday Open. I had a problem where I could not shift after a portion of the race. So I actually came to a restart, and normally I roll around in fourth, and then as I get, ready to restart, I drop it down to second gear. Well, I went to put it in second. It wouldn't go in second. So I had to actually restart that restart in fourth gear. I survived that, and then on caution, I tried to fix it. I ended up losing a lap, and so on the next caution, I ended up rebooting the wheel, which fixed the problem. But after that, I got completely wrecked out in a wreck I didn't cause, and yeah, it was a bad night.
Tony also ran on Wednesday. He had a P25, stayed clean in the top 10 for over half the race till the cautions bred cautions, and he was doored, rammed, and walled in the last 50 laps, and then he blew up.
Okay. And then I ran today, and boy, got a P10. But I had hub issues again where I couldn't shift. Basically, my universal hub quit working. The wheel still works where I could turn it, but the shifting and the buttons and everything stopped working. So I have a serious problem. 2 races in a row this has happened where I have to get out of the car under caution and map the shifter to buttons on the keyboard, and I have to shift with a freaking keyboard just to get through the race. So I actually lost spots dealing with that problem. I initially at the beginning of the race I thought I had the problem, and but I really didn't. I just panicked, and but then later in the race, about 3/4 of the race through, it happened again, and I had to go switch it to the keys. So I lost some spots. I was running 10th or so, and I ended up 10th. So pretty happy with that, considering the problems I've had. Let's talk official. The season wrapped up with 13 weeks of racing, and I took a look at points and what I ran in the sprint car because I ran that most of the season. P10 in points, Division 2. There were 8 weeks counted overall. It was really fun. I'm glad I ran it. I probably lost 600 or 700 iRating by running that, but it's more. There's more to life than iRating, and I don't really care about iRating. And I think I'll continue to run the sprint car on Tuesday nights. That's a pretty fun car. NASCAR Legends, I finished 19th in points, Division 2. There were only 9 weeks counted after drops. I had 1 win and 14 top fives. So pretty happy with my results. I thought I would do better in points, actually, in NASCAR Legends. But it's tough. There's a lot of good drivers in there. I'm kind of curious what will happen to participation with the changes to the car, too. Seems like there might be some changes.
Yeah, there may be some people who go and some people who come,
Yeah. Brian, tell us about league stuff.
Yeah, guys. So Monday night started the new season for the OBRLs in the ARCA series. It was a race at Daytona. I was really looking forward to it because I was racing it with Tony Groves and Chris Scales. We were all together. We had a plan to work together, working out just like we were planned it out. We got to the first set of pit stops, hot pits, and we were in a group with a couple other cars, and one of them was a rookie driver, and he, going into the pit stalls, he slowed up on track rather than getting down below the yellow line before starting to slow up to get into the pits. And when he did that, he stacked up all three of us pretty much. I got a lot of front end damage, so I went into the pits, got it fixed. But I went a couple laps down. The race stayed green the entire way. That's not unusual for an OBRL race. So it stayed green the whole way. So I stayed a couple laps down, finished DFL, dead freaking last, P39, and it was terrible. But I did have fun racing those guys up until that point. So that was Monday's race, and then last night in the OBR we did the truck race. This was Atlanta. I finished P13 in the race. It was started off pretty good, but hit the wall in the tri-oval and came right across my hood, smacked the front of my car. I got some damage. I was down about 500 RPMs, but I was able to just work my way through that damage, get some of it repaired, and then got a little lucky with a yellow flag that I stayed out, and some of the leaders had short pitted, and they got caught a lap down when the yellow came out. That kind of me from finishing worse than that. So I'm pretty happy with that, considering I had damage. But so I look forward to next week and see what goes on there.
All right, very good. Eucora Indy Throwback. It was Pocono. David, you got P12.
Yeah, fairly event-free run for me. Other people had trouble. I just, I coming into the league in the middle of the season, just trying to not step on any toes and set up as a clean driver. I caught a guy, and I definitely got to experience in that car the aero push, and you can't change the weight jacker in that car, especially in a fixed setup. Because I ran him down, and I just couldn't set up that pass. I couldn't get enough of a run out of turn one, like I could on a stock car to really pull by him. It would just get too tight, and I'd get off too far off the throttle. But it was still a fun race, and we're going to Sonoma tonight.
I had P19 in that race. I don't really remember how I ran. Obviously not very good. Okay, and with that, let's jump into final thoughts. Brian McCubbin.
So I was a little disappointed after Monday's race, the first race of the year season. It's only a 13-week season, and I think it's only 10 before the playoffs start. I don't know if I can dig my way out of a P39, but we'll give it a shot. That's pretty much it. I didn't get in a race at the NIS at Darlington. I just couldn't fit that time schedule into my schedule. It's just too long of a race for what I had going on this week. So I look forward to getting back out there this week and trying to catch up on that.
All right, very good. David Hall, final thoughts.
I'm looking forward to the season 4 getting started up, and also wrapping up the NIS. I've been in a bit of a slump, but we're going to be going back to some of the tracks that I run well at. I almost broke the slump at Dover, but Darlington and Richmond so far have been not so great.
All right, very good. My final thoughts, excited to be running NIS and getting a top 10 at Richmond. I was telling Brian before the show, it wore me out today. I don't know if it's just I'm up on the wheel, so I keep it out of the wall or what, but I was just plain wore out. I still have my force feedback on 60%, but these wheel problems are frustrating right now. I'm tempted just to buy a new hub. I've never had good luck with this hub ever since I bought it. The buttons just crumble, and now the thing doesn't even work. I can't shift it, and I'm just like, I'm just going to buy a new one. I don't even know how to troubleshoot it. So looking forward to the Legends and Sprint Car starting up again next week. And I guess I'm glad that the NBC thing failed with the Coke race, because that means we're going to continue to have Evan coming on our show to review those races. That's been a really nice addition to the show this year, to have Evan come on and kind of do a deep dive into what happened. So with that, we'll see you on the track. Later.